A lot of people are still worried about a Prince George's County woman who has been missing for nearly 2 weeks. I'm talking about 19-year-old Cara Thompson. Right now, police are waiting on autopsy results after a body was found near Annapolis. Our Alexis Wainwright joins me in the studio right now with more on the investigation. So, Alexis, where does this case stand and what are people saying?
Well, Lorenzo, as you mentioned, this is still an active investigation and they're waiting for more results to determine if the 19-year-old is still missing. But in the meantime, we know this case, along with several others, has caused concern for people in Prince George's County. Now, Prince George's County police have confirmed a body found over the weekend near Annapolis shares certain similarities with Cara Thompson. They're waiting for autopsy results that could come any day now. Now, it's not the news that her family or anyone wants to hear.
This is the story of Cara Thompson. On August 23rd, 2025, 19-year-old Cara Rose Thompson of Lanham, Maryland, left home to get gas. She informed her father she would return shortly.
She said, "Dad, I'll be back."
Cara's father tried to contact her that night. He says she told him she was getting gas at this station near their home and would be back. But the next day, she didn't return.
That was the last communication received from her. The following day, August 24th, her white Ford Edge was located abandoned in Hyattsville. This discovery marked the beginning of a search effort led by local authorities. Surveillance footage obtained from nearby cameras showed Thompson entering a black SUV around 3 a.m. on the night she disappeared. Investigators traced the SUV to a residence in Bowie. On August 31st, 2025, a body was discovered in a grassy area off Route 50 in Anne Arundel County. The body was later confirmed as Cara Rose Thompson. Injuries included skull and facial fractures. The medical examiner has not yet released the official cause of death, but homicide is strongly indicated. Further investigation of the Bowie residence revealed multiple pieces of evidence linking the location to Thompson. These included traces of blood, a fingernail consistent with her recent manicure, and personal items such as a wig. On September 5th, 2025, authorities arrested Hugo Hernandez Mendez, age 35, a Guatemalan national residing in Bowie. He was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree murder. At his initial court appearance, Hernandez Mendez denied involvement. The court ruled the evidence sufficient to hold him without bond. A preliminary hearing is scheduled for October 8th, 2025. Before we dive into today's story, we want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? And how do you feel as the story unfolds? Welcome to Deadly Crime Unmasked, the show where we expose the shocking crimes that rip through communities and the chilling secrets lurking behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications. You won't want to miss the gripping story that's coming up. Now, let's dive in.
On Friday night, but just can you talk to us about what's in your heart and how you're feeling right now?
Oh, it's an undescribable feeling. I really don't know the words I can gather to say how I'm feeling right now. I'm so broken. I'm so broken. Nobody should have to experience what I'm feeling right now as a parent. It's an undescribable feeling. I just want my daughter back safely. I do.
Heard anything from police that could help locate her? Have they been communicative with you? Is there anything new since we spoke with you on Friday that you can share that people watching might want to know or think about?
PG County Police is working hard behind the scenes. They've made this case a priority, which I appreciate so much.
Paul, unfortunately, tonight's update is not the one we all hoped for. Police say they found a body matching the description of Cara Thompson. They made that discovery Sunday near Route 50 in Annapolis. Our Kelly Vaughn is at police headquarters where they made this announcement just a few hours ago.
Police have found a body they say matches the description of Cara Thompson, though they have not officially confirmed that it is her just yet. Maryland State Police were the ones to find the body. They say they were called to the area of eastbound Route 50 in Annapolis, where they found a young woman's body lying in a grassy area near the highway.
Cara Rose Thompson was a 19-year-old woman living in Lanham, Maryland. Her identity was well documented through official records and confirmed by family and community members. At the time of her disappearance and subsequent death, she was considered a young adult beginning the early stages of her independent life, while maintaining close ties to her family. She was known first and foremost as a daughter. Reports emphasize the bond she shared with her father, a connection made especially clear by the fact that her last known communication before she went missing was with him. That detail, preserved in both her phone records and the timeline investigators later reconstructed, marked an important element in tracing her final movements. In terms of her education and service, Cara was actively engaged in the Maryland Service Year Option Program, a state initiative focused on public service. Within that program, she had been noted for her involvement and commitment, with her name appearing in records and announcements praising her dedication. Her participation reflected a path that blended education with community service, showing that she had been integrated into formal structures intended to guide young adults into productive roles in society. Her lifestyle was typical for her age. Investigators and family members indicated that she followed normal teenage routines, such as social outings, communication with friends and family, and standard daily responsibilities. She was described as trustworthy, both within her household and among peers, and had no known history of criminal activity. A review of available records and law enforcement checks during the missing persons investigation confirmed that she had no prior criminal charges, arrests, or involvement in unlawful behavior. From a broader perspective, Cara's public image was one of responsibility and dedication. Local sources and officials highlighted her as service-oriented, presenting her as a young person who balanced personal commitments with participation in programs designed to strengthen the community. This image was consistent in reports issued after her disappearance, as neighbors, family acquaintances, and officials spoke to her reputation. Collectively, these details establish her as an individual with stability in her background, no apparent risk factors linked to criminal activity, and a documented connection to family and community. The sequence of events that culminated in Cara's disappearance began on the evening of August 23, 2025. According to statements made by her father and verified by law enforcement through text records, she informed him that she was leaving the house to get gas for her vehicle. This was a short, ordinary errand communicated directly to her family. At some point during this period, she also sent a text message to her father. In this message, she stated that she would be home soon. That communication would later be confirmed as her final known contact with her family. Investigators logged the time of the message and aligned it with her last known movements, which placed the message during the early morning hours of August 23rd. The last communication became an anchor point for investigators when reconstructing her timeline. It gave them both a time frame for her disappearance and a direct link to her intended activity that evening. The sequence suggested that she was not planning an extended absence, but instead had intended to return home promptly after completing her errand. Surveillance footage played a critical role in expanding on this timeline. Law enforcement obtained video evidence from a gas station that corresponded with her stated plans. The footage clearly documented Cara stopping at the station. In the video, she was seen moving normally, engaging in routine activity consistent with someone refueling or making a brief stop. The surveillance cameras also captured the next key event, Cara entering a black SUV. This detail was central to the investigation. The footage showed her approaching the vehicle and then getting inside. There were no visible signs of struggle on the recording. The absence of resistance suggested either voluntary entry or circumstances in which coercion was not outwardly visible on camera. The vehicle itself became an immediate focal point for investigators, as identifying its owner and tracing its movements were crucial for determining what happened next. Law enforcement reviewed additional footage from surrounding areas to confirm the SUV's path, while witnesses at the gas station were interviewed to see if anyone noticed unusual behavior. The combination of surveillance evidence and witness accounts gave investigators their first substantial lead in the case. By the conclusion of August 23rd, Cara had been reported missing by her family when she did not return home as expected. Her father's statement, the last text message, and the gas station surveillance created a structured timeline. This timeline documented the following: her departure from home to get gas, her communication promising to return soon, her stop at the gas station, and her entry into black SUV. On August 23rd, 2025, 19-year-old Cara Rose Thompson of Lanham, Maryland, left home after telling her father she was going to get gas. She sent him a message saying she would be home soon. When she did not return and could not be reached, her father reported her missing. That report began what would become a high-profile investigation across multiple counties in Maryland. Cara's father was the last known person to receive communication from her. The text message she sent created a timestamp for investigators to begin reconstructing her movements. When she did not arrive back at the residence within the expected time frame, and further attempts to reach her by phone when unanswered, her father initiated the missing persons report. This step placed law enforcement into the case at an early stage and allowed officers to start collecting information before crucial hours were lost. The report established the baseline. A teenage female, last seen leaving to refuel her vehicle, expected to return home, and failing to do so. This description placed the case into the category of an unexplained disappearance with possible foul play. After the missing persons report was filed, police in Prince George's County began standard procedures. They verified the details provided by the father, including the time of the last text message and the type of vehicle she was driving, a white Ford Edge. Officers initiated early investigative steps, which included checking nearby gas stations, reviewing potential surveillance video, and creating a timeline of Cara's movements. At this point, the matter was classified as a missing person investigation, but officers treated it with urgency due to the circumstances. A young adult, last seen alone, traveling late at night or early morning hours, and failing to return as expected. As the hours progressed with no sign of Cara, police expanded their involvement. Flyers were created and distributed in the surrounding communities. These carried a photograph description and details about the white Ford Edge. Local alerts were issued across Prince George's County, notifying residents to report any information. Law enforcement also engaged the media to help broadcast the case. News outlets quickly carried the story, ensuring public awareness and soliciting tips from anyone who may have seen the missing young woman or her vehicle. This step expanded the investigation beyond the immediate circle of family and law enforcement to include the wider public. Search operations focused on likely routes she might have taken after leaving the gas station. Investigators checked roadways, parking lots, and areas where abandoned vehicles are sometimes discovered. Officers also followed up on potential leads generated by public calls, though not all provided actionable information. On August 24, 2025, one day after Cara went missing, police located her vehicle. The white Ford Edge was discovered abandoned in Hyattsville, a community within Prince George's County. The vehicle's presence in this area provided investigators with a new focal point. The location of the SUV raised several questions. Whether Cara had driven there on her own, whether she had been forced to that location, and whether the vehicle had been abandoned by someone else. The recovery of the vehicle was documented, processed, and searched for potential evidence. Items inside were collected for forensic testing, including fingerprints, DNA, or any personal belongings that might shed light on her movements. The abandoned vehicle also allowed law enforcement to adjust the geographic scope of their search. It demonstrated that the case extended beyond the initial gas station area and required broader coordination across multiple jurisdictions. With the vehicle located but no sign of the victim, investigators widened their operations. Prince George's County Police coordinated with other agencies, including and Arundel County authorities, to ensure coverage of areas where Cara might be found. Search teams, forensic investigators, and specialized units became involved. The investigation now covered more territory, extending from the initial disappearance site to additional counties along possible travel routes. The focus was on wooded areas, highways, and places where bodies have historically been concealed in similar cases. Teams systematically canvassed these areas, while detectives continued to analyze surveillance footage and digital evidence, including phone records. On August 31st, 2025, 8 days after the disappearance, a body was discovered. The location was a grassy area off Route 50 in Anne Arundel County. The body was in a condition that suggested violence. The discovery of the remains shifted the investigation from a missing persons case to a homicide inquiry. Officers secured the scene, marking it as a potential crime scene and preventing contamination of evidence. The body was transported to the office of the chief medical examiner for autopsy and official identification. Initial observations reported that the victim had sustained significant injuries, including skull and facial fractures. These injuries suggested blunt force trauma, though the full details awaited forensic examination. Investigators treated the case as a homicide, pending confirmation by the medical examiner. The location of the body, off a major highway in a grassy area, indicated that the remains had been deliberately concealed but not deeply buried. This provided potential forensic opportunities, such as trace evidence linking the scene to the suspect or vehicle used to transport the body. The medical examiner conducted the autopsy to determine the cause and manner of death. While the full report was pending, law enforcement and prosecutors anticipated a homicide ruling based on visible injuries. The examination would also determine the estimated time of death, whether the victim had defensive wounds, and whether there were other contributing factors. This information would be essential for both the ongoing investigation and later legal proceedings. Forensic processes, combined with physical recognition, confirmed the identity of the victim as Cara Rose Thompson. Confirmation of identity officially closed the missing persons phase of the case and established a transition to a homicide case. This allowed police to proceed with a different set of investigative protocols, focusing on suspects, forensic evidence, and the reconstruction of the crime. One of the earliest and most critical steps in the investigation was the review of surveillance footage obtained from multiple sources around the time Cara Thompson went missing. On August 23, 2025, Thompson had left home late at night, stopping to get gas. Camera systems at the gas station and nearby establishments captured images of her shortly before she disappeared. At approximately 3 a.m., surveillance footage revealed Thompson approaching and entering a black SUV. There was no recorded indication of a struggle with the vehicle, but the entry itself was significant because it marked the last confirmed sighting of her alive. Investigators traced the SUV through traffic and neighborhood cameras, narrowing the vehicle's activity to the area of Bowie, Maryland. The identification of the SUV provided law enforcement with a lead that allowed them to move from a general missing persons case to a focused investigation tied to a specific vehicle and a location. This evidence became the first verifiable link connecting Thompson's disappearance to the suspect. With the SUV identified, investigators worked through registration records, license plate databases, and neighborhood surveillance networks to determine the vehicle's origin. The search led to a residence in Bowie, Maryland. The Bowie property became a central focus. Surveillance mapping showed the SUV returning there on the night of August 23rd, after Thompson was last seen entering it. This timeline supported investigators' theory that she was taken to that location, and that the property could hold crucial evidence. Police obtained a search warrant and moved to examine the premises for any physical or trace evidence that could confirm Thompson's presence in the residence. Upon searching the Bowie residence, investigators identified a bedroom as a likely crime scene. This conclusion was supported by several key discoveries. Detectives located blood traces within the bedroom. Subsequent forensic testing confirmed the blood matched Thompson's DNA profile. A fingernail was found at the scene. The nail's design matched a recent manicure Thompson had, as confirmed by family members and social media records. The fingernail provided both physical and circumstantial evidence of her presence and struggle inside the home. A wig and other belongings associated with Thompson were also recovered from the room. These items linked her directly to the crime scene, strengthening the case that the Bowie residence was where the killing occurred. The findings in the bedroom effectively transformed the investigation from a missing person search into a homicide inquiry. The evidence demonstrated that Thompson had not simply entered the SUV voluntarily and disappeared, but that she was taken to residence and subjected to violence. The physical evidence collected from the Bowie residence underwent detailed forensic analysis. Law enforcement agencies coordinated with crime laboratories to ensure that all trace evidence was examined methodically. Blood samples recovered from the bedroom were matched to Thompson through DNA analysis, confirming her direct presence at the scene. Additional DNA testing sought to determine whether suspect DNA could also be identified at the site. The type, spread, and volume of blood evidence supported the conclusion that a violent assault had occurred in the bedroom. Fibers, fingerprints, and other microscopic particles were collected from surfaces and objects. Each piece of evidence was cataloged for potential presentation in court. The fingernail was further analyzed for possible DNA under the nail, which could indicate defensive actions during a struggle. The forensic work solidified the conclusion that the Bowie residence was not merely a place Thompson visited, but was instead the location of her death. Following the evidence trail, investigators identified the occupant of the Bowie residence as Hugo Hernandez Mendez, a 35-year-old Guatemalan national. His residence matched the location where the SUV was traced, and the crime scene evidence tied directly to Thompson's disappearance and death. Hernandez Mendez was living in Bowie, Maryland, at the time of the crime. His residency status was further scrutinized during the investigation, revealing additional legal complexities. Authorities determined that Hernandez Mendez was living in the United States without legal authorization. Records showed he had been arrested in 2024 on charges related to driving under the influence. At that time, federal immigration authorities had placed a detainer on him, requesting he remain in custody. However, he had been released while awaiting trial on the DUI charge. His continued presence in the country became a point of public and political focus following his arrest for Thompson's murder. On September 5, 2025, law enforcement executed the arrest of Hugo Hernandez Mendez. He was taken into custody without reported incident. Prosecutors filed charges of first-degree murder and second-degree murder against Hernandez Mendez. These charges reflected the severity of the evidence gathered, including the forensic proof of Thompson's death occurring in his residence and the surveillance tying his vehicle to her disappearance. Hernandez Mendez appeared in court shortly after his arrest. During this initial appearance, prosecutors outlined a case against him, highlighting the forensic findings, the surveillance footage, and the timeline of events linking him to Thompson's disappearance and death. The court determined that Hernandez Mendez would be held without bond, citing the seriousness of the charges, the strength of the evidence presented, and his immigration status, which raised concerns about flight risk. The person charged in the case is Hugo Hernandez Mendez, age 35, identified by prosecutors as a resident of Bowie, Maryland. He was arrested and charged with first and second-degree murder following the discovery of the victim's body and subsequent investigative developments. Hernandez Mendez has publicly denied involvement and has requested counsel during court proceedings. Public reporting indicates Hernandez Mendez is a Guatemalan national who federal immigration records and local officials say was in the United States without authorization. He has a previous arrest record that includes a 2024 driving under the influence charge. After that arrest, an IC detainer was reportedly placed but was not enforced, so the suspect remained in the community while that matter was pending. Those prior law enforcement contacts and the IC detainer have been cited by local officials and in press coverage as relevant to investigative context. As of the initial charging documents and court appearances, law enforcement has not established a prior personal relationship or publicly announced a definitive motive linking Hernandez Mendez and Cara Thompson. Prosecutors allege that surveillance and other investigative leads connect Thompson's final known movements to the suspect's vehicle and a Bowie residence. However, investigators have not released evidence of any long-standing personal relationship between the two. Evidence: discovery of the victim and geographic facts. Investigators located a deceased person in a grassy area off Route 50 in Anne Arundel County. Subsequent identification procedures confirmed the body was that of 19-year-old Cara Thompson. The discovery date and location are recorded in the investigative timeline, released by police and reported by regional news organizations. The victim had been reported missing roughly 1 week prior to the discovery, after she left home to refuel her vehicle and did not return. Evidence: surveillance and scene linkage. Law enforcement officials state that surveillance footage captured Thompson approaching and entering a black sport utility vehicle in the early morning hours on the night she disappeared. Investigators traced that vehicle to a Bowie residence where they alleged Thompson was taken and killed in a bedroom. The footage, according to police statements, provided the lead that connected the victim to the suspect's vehicle and home. Evidence: forensic and physical items reported. Police report the recovery of forensic material at the Bowie residence and at locations tied to the investigation. Reported items include blood consistent with the victim, a fingernail that investigators say matches the victim's manicure, and a wig that authorities state is consistent with items observed on surveillance footage. Authorities collected DNA and trace samples for laboratory comparison. Those tests were cited by prosecutors as central elements of the evidentiary picture in early case filings. Investigators have examined cell phone records, geolocation data, and multiple surveillance camera feeds to reconstruct the victim's last known movements. Law enforcement statements indicate cell phone and camera data place the victim in the vicinity of the suspect's vehicle and residence during the relevant time frame. Prosecutors have described digital timelines and corroborating visual evidence as important to establishing the sequence of events leading to the discovery of the body. Preliminary medical examiner information released to the media reports that Thompson sustained skull and facial fractures consistent with blunt force trauma. Officials indicated the injuries are being evaluated and that the death is expected to be ruled a homicide once the autopsy and toxicology are complete. The final, signed medical examiner report with formal cause and manner of death remains part of the official record once completed and released by the medical examiner's office. Hernandez-Mendez was arrested on September 5, 2025, and charged with first and second-degree murder in connection with Thompson's death. During his first court appearance, he denied involvement. The prosecutor's office asserted they had sufficient probable cause to seek formal charges. The judge ordered Hernandez-Mendez held without bond following the initial appearance. Prosecutors indicated they would present the case to a grand jury and that a preliminary hearing is scheduled. Media reports note a preliminary hearing date of October 8, 2025. Legal proceedings, prosecution evidence strategy, and anticipated defense approach. Public statements by prosecutors and the materials disclosed at the initial hearing indicate the prosecution will rely on the convergence of surveillance footage, forensic testing, blood, and trace evidence, physical items recovered at the residence, and cell phone/location data to construct a timeline and link the suspect to the victim and the place where the killing allegedly occurred. Defense counsel, as reported, is expected to challenge the chain of custody for physical evidence, contest the sufficiency and interpretation of forensic comparisons, and argue that circumstantial or associative evidence does not prove the specific intent or conduct required for a first-degree murder. Those strategic positions are consistent with the charges and the evidence types reported by authorities. As of the most recent court actions, the defendant remains in custody without bond, and the case is in the pretrial phase. Investigative units continue to process forensic results and provide discovery materials to defense counsel as required by court rules. The scheduled preliminary hearing and subsequent pretrial deadlines will determine whether the prosecution moves the matter to trial, seeks indictments, or pursues plea negotiations. The governor's office and law enforcement officials have issued public statements acknowledging the investigation and indicating coordination with victim services while criminal processes proceed. If this story gripped your heart and left you questioning the truth, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with others who need to hear it. For more chilling true crime stories that dive deep into the mysteries behind these tragedies, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest updates, investigations, and thought-provoking discussions. Thank you for being part of this journey with us as we uncover the truth and seek justice. Together, we can make a difference. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.